This is my dog, Togo. These past few weeks I've been on a journey to find out how something so cute and tiny came from this. When I set out to make this video, I thought that it would be fun and quirky and maybe a little cute. But it turned out that I completely underestimated the role that dogs played in history. Dogs have been shaping humanity since day one. And that is where our story begins. 40,000 years ago, there are no dogs yet, but various species of wolf, coyote, and jackal could be found on almost every continent. For us as humans, this was a time before history, when we were still slowly seeping into the different corners of the earth. There's very little we can say with certainty about a time so long ago. There's just archaeological evidence and interpretations of it. Our best guess is that humans and wolves, at least initially, did not have much beef. They were both predators. That meant that they had a lot of incentive to just stay away from one another. But something must have changed, because 36,000 years ago, the first dogs start popping up in the archaeological record.
To understand how that happened, we first need to understand how early humans must have seen wolves. And the fact is that wolves were probably spiritually and culturally significant to our ancestors, as were most animals. Just look at some of the oldest examples of human self-expression. Cave paintings. And what do you see in them? Animals. With the wolf, even more special is that it is one of nature's most social animals, and that must have reminded early humans of themselves at least a little. Just like humans, wolves lived and hunted in packs. It has even been suggested that some humans observed wolves to learn how to hunt better. This connection must have inspired certain hunters to take wolf pups with them if they encountered them in the wild, especially if it looked like they had been orphaned. They would then attempt to raise them as best as they could. This is the starting point for the process of domestication.
Wolves that grow up around humans are no dogs, but they can be tamed. For these wolves, success and failure was determined by other factors than for their wild counterparts. From an evolutionary perspective, the most important selective pressure became the ability to connect with humans. Wolves that had a genetic predisposition to be more chill could count on more food and care, living longer, healthier lives, having more offspring that inherited their chill genes. A little fact about genes. The same gene can control multiple features of an organism. For example, some genes that control behavior also control appearance. That means that tamed wolves, after many generations of being selected based on behavior, started to exhibit physical changes. In the archaeological record, they would have appeared as the proto-dogs I mentioned earlier. But these ancient dog lineages seem to have died out. I think that it might have just been too early. Society was too basic and fragile. I think that settlements often died out and dogs just merged back into wolf populations.
This might be a good time to talk about what people actually got out of owning a dog back then. Spirituality alone does not explain why people would choose to spend so many resources in keeping a dog. They must have gotten something in return. It's been suggested that dogs played multiple roles. The primary function of a dog, both back then and for most of subsequent human history, was as guards. A dog can smell a dangerous animal or a stranger before most people are able to hear or see them. Owning a dog gave you valuable time to prepare for a potentially life-threatening encounter, and this was especially true at night. People who owned dogs likely slept a lot easier than those who didn't. In fact, the ability to bark likely developed as a result of dogs acting as guards. One of the reasons dogs bark is to intimidate threats into backing off. It is particularly effective when there are multiple dogs around, as the bark of one dog can summon and alert the rest of them.
Besides being guards, dogs were a great help in hunting, but rather than going after animals themselves, dogs played the role of an assistant. Dogs could deter predators, track wounded prey, and carry supplies. People made the Paleolithic version of one of these dog backpacks, meaning a dog could easily transport up to 20 kilograms worth of stuff. The extra supplies meant that hunters could spend more time away from home, increasing the likelihood of running into some prey. Dogs were a source of warmth during the night, and their backs could also be used to bring more meat back to the settlement than a hunter would have been able to carry on their own.
Clearly, there were good reasons to own a dog 30,000 years ago, but this fact inspires another revelation. Since dogs were an advantage, It meant that humans that had dogs were more successful in the grand scheme of things. So just as wolves and later dogs were selected by humans to be more obedient and chill, so did dogs in a way shape the human race to be more dog-friendly. People who could cooperate with dogs replaced those that couldn't. Domestication can be a two-way street. But so is subscribing to this channel. You gain access to great fun, information-dense videos with details you won't find anywhere else online because I actually read books and not just Wikipedia articles. I gain a subscriber and that makes me happy. Deal? It's finally time to talk about the emergence of the modern dog. The oldest skeletal remains we've found that undoubtedly belong to a modern dog are about 14,000 years old. There are three things I'd like to mention about these remains. Firstly, it is impossible that this is actually the first dog. Physical changes probably started manifesting after behavioral changes. If this dog was physically distinct from a wolf, then it meant that its ancestors were already acting like dogs.
Then there is the location. This dog is known as the Oberkassel Dog, as in it was found in Germany, but it's unclear exactly where dogs emerged. It seems most likely that dog domestication was occurring simultaneously, all across Eurasia. Researchers have suggested two major domestication events in Europe and China, both around 15,000 years ago. Eventually, the Asian dogs replaced most of the European lineage. These dogs also made their way across the Beringian land bridge into America, which explains how Native Americans could have had dogs prior to European contact that were still related to all other dogs.
Last point was that this Oberkassel dog died before its first birthday as a result of illness. This illness, called canine distemper, usually kills a dog within a few weeks, and this dog was sick for months. The only way that was possible is if our ancestors attempted to care for this dog. It's interesting that the literal oldest dog comes with evidence of an emotional bond. Perhaps caring for our pets is just part of being human.
But 14,000 years ago, that makes the dog undoubtedly the first animal to be domesticated, before horses, cows, sheep, goats, and everyone else. Why is that? Well, we have already touched upon the behavioral similarities between wolves and humans, especially in regards to being social creatures. We have a somewhat shared experience of existing within a social group, so I suppose that helps communication and mutual understanding. But there are also practical reasons for why the dog predates all other domestications. Basically, it boils down to dogs being compatible with nomadic societies. Domestication of other animals was associated with a rather dramatic change in how humans lived. A cow or a goat requires you to settle down and get into that whole agriculture thing. Dogs, meanwhile, were able to keep pace with nomadic humans. They don't even require that many resources, as they are more than capable of providing most of their own food. Basically, they are cooperative enough to get along with humans, while also being independent enough to not require too many resources. So what happened next? Humanity started settling down, which meant that dogs had a new role to play. Settling down was all about doing agriculture. 10,000 years ago, we domesticated the first farm animals. These animals needed to be managed and protected, which is where dogs come in. Initially, dogs acted as guards for farm animals so that the people could have more time to concentrate on other tasks. Wolves, bears, and other predators were a big problem back then, but we've subsequently hunted them almost to extinction.
But dogs that hang around livestock all day need different skills than dogs that are expected to help people hunt. This is where breeds come in.
These days, there's like 1 billion different dog breeds. Some are tiny little nuggets like Togo over here, who is a beaver Yorkie. Others are massive like the Great Dane, have a great sense of smell like the Bloodhound, or are super fast like the Greyhound. Initially, there must have only been some geographical variation amongst dogs. Those that lived in colder climates were probably more husky-like, whereas those in warmer areas were more like one of these kinds of hounds. This natural variation is referred to as different land races of dog. But 5,000 or 6,000 years ago, we start seeing the first evidence of artificial selection by humans. In the ancient Middle East, areas like Mesopotamia and Egypt, we see that dogs were selected to do certain tasks based on their appearance. For any given litter, the dogs that looked beefier and stronger were used as guards, while the dogs that looked leaner and faster were used as hunting companions. After many generations, the variation from within the same local land race transformed into 2 or more distinct breeds. With time, even more breeds emerged, selected to do certain tasks. Dedicated shepherd dogs appeared because people needed dogs that they could rely on to not eat the animals that they were supposed to protect. There were also sled dogs that were used in certain colder climates to make transportation easier.
Then, around 2,000 years ago, we start seeing the first true pets. Now, there have always been people who've had an emotional bond with their dogs. That's not what I'm talking about. Almost simultaneously, in both the Roman Republic and in China, aristocrats started owning small lap dogs as a status symbol. Here's a drawing of such a dog taken from a Roman vase from around 500 BCE. In general, the diversity of breeds greatly increased, as dogs from different parts of the Roman realm were bred together to make the best dog for each task. There's evidence that Romans had a more advanced, hands-on perspective in regards to breeding, to the extent that the ancestry of certain dogs could be traced back multiple generations.
The idea that purebred dogs were special and better than other dogs outlived the Roman Empire. It fit really well with the worldview of the medieval and later early modern European nobility. They had that whole thing going about being blue-blooded, basically the idea that they deserved to rule because their blood contained positive, noble character traits. This was one of the rationales behind a near-total, Europe-wide taboo on nobility marrying commoners, as doing so would pollute the blood. When applied to dogs, this allowed the nobility to declare that some dogs were better than others. Nobles had their own noble dogs and dog breeds. These were either big hounds used for hunting or small lap dogs used as accessories by female aristocrats. The nobility were particularly interested in achieving a distinct color palette for their dogs, as that would more immediately differentiate them from other breeds. At the beginning of the 19th century, there remained a significant variation in the appearance of each dog breed. Breeds were still more like signifiers of purpose and geographical location, but everything changed with the Industrial Revolution. The skyrocketing wealth of European countries during the 19th century resulted in about 1 billion changes that ultimately created the modern world we know today. With life no longer being a battle for survival, people, starting with the aristocracy, began spending more time and money on various hobbies, like breeding dogs. The desire to classify and exactly describe the world meant dog breeds were shoved into neat little boxes. The function of the dog became completely superfluous. The only thing that mattered was the appearance. To this end, breeding was carefully controlled, especially through the institution of kennel clubs, the first of which opened in England in 1873. A kennel club defines the physical appearance that dogs of a particular breed are supposed to have, and keeps records of dogs so as to verify heritage. Honestly, it's kind of fascist. Within a few years, kennel clubs had taken over Europe and soon enough the world.
From the aristocracy, the practice of keeping pets spread to the newly moneyed urban bourgeoisie as a way to also signify wealth, but relations towards dogs were changing all across society. The animal rights movement is an oft overlooked aspect of 19th and 20th century reformism that created the modern liberal democratic society. The Enlightenment's rejection of torture, combined with increased exposure to dogs playing the role of companions, resulted in the creation of a societal taboo against their mistreatment, which gradually spread to many other animals. The development of vaccines, combined with other measures that reduced any health risk that dogs pose to humans, also helped a lot in getting people to view dogs more positively.
In the past few decades, dog welfare debates have shifted to undoing the damage done by ill-conceived breeding practices. Some dog breeds are downright cruel, like the pug. Over the past 200 years, the snout of the pug was selectively bred to be basically non-existent, which resulted in many health complications. Some breeders are attempting to undo the damage by breeding pugs with longer snouts, but the real problem with breeding practices lies far deeper. To standardize the appearance of almost every dog breed, a lot of incest was used. There was no other way. Basically, most modern dog breeds come from a very small initial population that were forced to have many children. This lack of genetic diversity means that hereditary health issues are much more likely to show up.
The good news is that breeders are waking up to this issue. Very, very slowly, the needle is moving from prioritizing human vanity to prioritizing dog health. What remains true is that we need to keep taking responsibility for our pets. Dogs are sometimes seen as just these wild animals that we've invited into our lives, But that is simply not true. As you have seen, domestication has rewritten the minds and bodies of our pets and made them part of the human experience. So the last thing I wanted to talk about today is what exactly makes dogs so well suited to living with people?
The main thing is that the primary trend over all these tens of thousands of years of selection was towards less fear and greater obedience, so dogs are actually quite comfortable around humans. If you think about it, dogs are often more comfortable with their human than around other dogs. It's scientifically proven that dogs don't just see us as a different kind of dog. We play a special role in their perception of the world. They understand our emotions from the tone of our voice and our body language. In unfamiliar situations, dogs look to their human to determine how they will react, because they recognize that we have a different perspective, that we might be seeing and hearing things that they can't. They understand our body language really well. They comprehend things like pointing and gaze shifts. It's really cute when dogs want to play, but it's also impressive because they get that it's just a game. They can compartmentalize their experiences, recognizing that things that might be appropriate to do during play are not appropriate otherwise. Dogs have developed a special muscle on their face that they only use when communicating with humans, to make them look extra cute. Dogs can form attachments with people at any age, which helps them survive in our world. Over time, their ability to read our thoughts and emotions shapes them to be more like their human. Honestly, I could keep going on and on and on about how smart and intuitive dogs can be, then the video would never end.
So that's about it. Dogs have survived a long time alongside humans. They have accompanied us since prehistory. Because of us, their minds and bodies have been reshaped. Because of them, we have also changed. Dogs are known to be absolutely loyal. They are an essential part of many families. In our modern frantic reality, they help relieve some stress. Less stress means better cardiovascular health, means longer life. Dogs help you live longer. Look it up, it's true. I think it's time for us to show a little bit of loyalty in return. Dogs of almost every breed suffer from health problems as a result of bad breeding practices. We have the technology to fix this, but it requires us to move away from purity of blood obsessions and towards a healthy diversity of genes. There are also those who say that people go too far in treating their pets like children. But in light of everything we've learned today, how could you not? Dogs are not wild animals. They have been with us for tens of thousands of years, and we have cared for them for just as long. We have mourned them, we have treasured them, and we have depended on them as companions on every continent. History has given us this responsibility, so I think the only option here is to understand, help, and cherish dogs as much as we can. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to keep more coming. Check out my channel for other fun videos and leave your thoughts in the comments below. This has been Ivan and Togo, and we're gonna go play now. So see you! Bye!